Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Let's get ready to rumble!
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to another edition of Coffee with Cramer. I'm your host, Rob Cramer. Thanks for joining me on this the podcast edition of the show. Today I have a very special guest, Daniel BOBO Kurlan from the Eastside Dave Show, from Compound Media, the old O&A days. This guy gets around a lot. He's a good friend of mine. Me and him, before 2020 rolled around, we would frequent quite a few Met games every year for at least, the last 5 or 6 years, right, Dan?
That's right.
Yes.
For the last 5 or 6 years, we were frequenting Met games.
Exactly. And, so as everybody knows him, it's Daniel BOBO Kurlan. And I'm your host, Rob Cramer. And, we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff today, Dan. There's a lot of stuff to get into as the Mets are both of our teams, as you can tell by your hat and my shirt. There you go. Love that shirt too. Perfect.
Lawn shirt from a couple of years ago.
Yes, you're right. I love it. And so we've got a brand new owner in Queens, which I'm sure we're both very thrilled about. Steve Cohen bought the Mets for $2.4 billion in just about a month ago at this point. We're also going to be getting into, as we were discussing off air, Dan's first place Giants, which just a couple weeks ago, nobody really thought that would have been a possibility. But the other teams, most notably the Eagles, have left that door wide open for everybody else in that division. And the Giants currently sit atop the NFC East, tied with the Washington football team, 4-7. So not a great record, but hey, plenty of teams have made it in, well, at least two in NFL history have made the playoffs at 7-9. Who knows? Maybe the winner of your division will be 6-10. Who knows? But if you put together a run and you win your division, you're in the playoffs, and that's all that matters. We're also going to be talking about a little New York Rangers hockey, or NHL in general, as Pierre LeBrun was tweeting earlier today about the NHL governors meetings, where they're talking about a possible 52 or 56 game season, with the season commencing a little bit later than the targeted January 1st date that they originally wanted. Now it's going to be a January 15th is what they're talking about right now. It's pretty much going to be like one of those strike or lockout years where they start anywhere between January 15th and January 20th. And with that, let's get right into it. As the New York Mets, as we just mentioned, have a brand new owner. Dan, what was your reaction? I mean, I think we're about a day or two removed from being a year ago when in December of 2019, Tiki Barber announced on his radio show on the CBS radio network that the Mets were going to be potentially up for sale. Now, I got to tell you, when I first heard that, I thought it was complete bullshit. What did you think?
I thought there was a part of me that was excited. I wasn't jumping the gun just yet. Then I heard they had potentially reached a deal with Steve Cohen. That the first time, I was like jumping for joy, like pop. I was ready to pop the champagne. Well, hypothetically, pop the champagne because I didn't have actual champagne on hand, but it was kind of like that. And then all of a sudden, a couple of days, I think I even reacted to it on the Eastside Dave Show, if I remember correctly, how excited I was. Yeah, Dave, we got a new owner that gives a damn. And then a couple of days later, I hear the sale broke down.
Yeah, so we found out the news that the sale was gonna happen potentially in December. It really picked up over the next 2 months, and then like literally just a few weeks before the pandemic hit, we found out that sale, like you just mentioned, had fallen through. And they had this ridiculous thing where they wanted Cohen to pay even more money than he did already. He paid $2.4 billion in this transaction. A year ago, they were talking about $2.7 billion, which the Mets, Jeff Wilpon in particular, cost himself around $300 million in this deal because, and actually the pandemic did play a role in it as well. But if they could have just gotten this deal done in February of this year without the ridiculous thing of Jeff Wilpon holding on to the title of COO for 5 years until somewhere down the line he takes over 80% of the team, this deal worked out much better for Steve Cohen, where he completed this transaction for $2.4 billion, and now he has 95% control of the team, with the Wilpons retaining the the extra 5%. So you really have to give it to Steve Cohen that he sat back, he was patient, and he really outlasted all the other bidders. They had a bunch of other guys from other sports and actually A-Rod and J-Lo. What was your thoughts about the potential of A-Rod and J-Lo being the Mets owners?
I was gonna cringe at that. It's J-Lo's just gonna turn everything around Citi Field into a nightclub. Like, have to, or am I gonna or is it gonna be mandatory tickets to a Jennifer Lopez concert? If you want season tickets, you have to buy tickets to her concerts there.
It's that wouldn't be surprising at this point, with the last ownership group that the Mets had and everything, with the Wilpons and all the insanity that they've going on. It wouldn't have surprised me if you had to buy, some kind of J-Lo ticket package just to get into Citi Field, if that happened, or some kind of A-Rod supplement or whatever that he's selling, something like that. But
you would have saw I'm gonna say Pete Alonso bobblehead night presented by Biogenesis Medical.
Yeah. It's funny you bring that up too. I was just watching MLB Network last night. Had a whole thing about the steroid era, talking, like focusing in on Barry Bonds and everything like that. So it would have been typical, and they obviously did mention the bio and everything with A-Rod. So it would have been typical to bring that kind of drama to Queens. And really, the Mets, how many times have we been seeing on Twitter and in the newspapers and everybody saying LOL Mets and everything like that for the last few years, with all the injuries and all the insanity. And if you remember, like Yoenis Cespedes, when he opted out this year, and all the just craziness that the fallout from that, where the Mets kind of made you believe initially that that Cespedes went MIA and was missing. And when, a couple of teammates like Jacob deGrom and Steven Matz were asked about it, and they said no, they found out the night before that he was leaving. So it's not like he just kind of sprung it on the team, but the Mets kind of played it off that way, I guess, to make him look bad for whatever reason. So I'm just kind of happy that we now have a competent owner that puts competent people in place, and that the Mets are not going to be known as a clown show anymore, right?
Yeah, I'm excited about it. Steve Cohen really gives me off the vibe that he's committed to winning, and he's willing to pay whatever he's willing to pay to get that big parade down the Canyon of Heroes one day.
No doubt about it. I mean, and he even said, now let's talk about that press conference, the initial press conference that he had just a few weeks ago, where he really introduced himself to Met fans and New York media for the first time. I thought, as many other people did, and apparently you did too, that he hit a home run in that initial press conference. It couldn't have been any better. I love the fact that he put a time frame on when he wants to win a championship by. He said 3 to 5 years. Now, I don't think that's a hard deadline. I think he was just kind of saying that he'd be disappointed if they didn't win a World Series in the first 3 to 5 years. I saw a couple of reports coming out over the last few days from guys like Andy Martino and Tim Healy saying that might have chased off a few executives and to come to the Mets for the potential of baseball president of ops and the GM role. So they're saying that could have chased guys away because the bar was set too high, or whatever you want to say. But I saw that Steve Cohen even responded to that on Twitter, which I love, by the way. I love looking at his Twitter. And he even responded to that and said that we don't want guys that are afraid to live up to, a standard like that, a championship standard. What did you think about that?
I fully agree with that. He wanted guys that would actually willing to step up to the challenge, because that's what I feel like you'd want as a GM, to step up to that challenge and actually say you actually pulled it off.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And, especially in New York, you don't want guys that are going to be shying away from conflict or from high standards, or this a championship thing that you want to achieve. That's the name of the game. And I saw actually that Andy Martino was on SNY the other day, and he's really getting a lot of flack on Twitter. I saw Mike Piazza even joined in too, which made me laugh. I don't know if you saw this, Dan, but on one of those Mets off-season, like off-season hot stove shows, Andy Martino said that the Mets' main goal really is to establish not just a winning culture, and not to win a World Series, but to get the process perfected, and to he was getting killed because he was saying that the process of winning and everything that goes into it is bigger, or more of what they want to accomplish than have like a World Series trophy at the end of the year, which I don't think it came out right. And look, I'm not a big fan of Andy Martino. I do follow his work because he's on the point a lot of the time. But like, did you see any of that?
Yeah, I did. I feel he didn't quite get that they are trying to go into it like from day one. They got to go into that winning mindset to really get that momentum toward the championship. They could start like each year should be aiming for that goal and try to get closer to it if it didn't end that way.
Yeah, it's true. But I think it kind of also falls in what Sandy said in his press conference, which, by the way, I failed to mention so far, that one of Steve Cohen's first orders of business was to appoint Sandy Alderson as the team president, which I thought was a great move. And, from what Sandy said was that they don't want to be known just for winning. They want to be known how they win. And I can understand that. That means like teams like the Yankees, the Dodgers, and the Rays are three of the best run teams in baseball right now from top to bottom. And if you look at them over the last 10 years, they've won one championship combined. One. The San Francisco Giants, who haven't been a good team in about the better part of the last 3, 4, 5 years, have 3 championships in that time. And they're not in the same league as the 3 teams I just mentioned. So I think that's kind of what Sandy and Andy was talking about, But it does kind of come off as like, what are you talking about? The only thing that us Met fans care about is winning a World Series, because the last time the Mets won a World Series was 1986, and if I'm correct, I think you were about 4 years old.
Yep. So 4 years old, and at Game 6 with my mother in the mezzanine level of Shea Stadium.
That is awesome, by the way. And it, I would have loved to have been there at Game 6 with you, but unfortunately, I had only been born 12 days before. So, I was just a little bit young to be checking out my first Met game there, especially in the World Series. But it's funny the way that that everything worked out with Steve Cohen coming in, and I'm kind of surprised that they really haven't hired a GM yet. Is there anybody that you've had your eye on or that you've heard about that you'd like the Mets to go after in that GM role?
I haven't really seen there really is anyone they really want to go after. It looks like Steve Cohen is willing to maybe suck it up a year and he's confident in Sandy Alderson being able to hold the fort in the GM role,
Mm-hmm.
until they could find the guy they want if they need be. And you got to remember, GMs like Theo Epstein, he said that he wanted to maybe take a year off.
Yep, that's exactly
a realistic possibility. I feel like he likes the idea of being able to say that he brought championships to two teams that had long championship droughts.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Theo Epstein obviously was the GM of the Boston Red Sox when they won the 2004 and 2007 World Series championships, but obviously 2004 being the gigantic one because the Red Sox hadn't won a championship since 1918 before that. So he really helped them get that monkey off their back, so to speak. And going back to the old O&A days, I wish I had a bell to hit right now after I said that. But the old Anthony Bell.
Yeah.
But they really and then just to continue on Theo real quick, he also obviously won the 2016 World Series with the Chicago Cubs. So two iconic franchises he led to World Series championships after years and years and years and decades of just not being able to get it done. And I think you hit on something there because that's what I was going to bring up. I think part of the reason why we're in like a holding pattern right now is I think that Sandy's just going to hold it down for this season for 2021, and then after this year, after Theo Epstein gets to take his time and figure out exactly what he's doing, and spend some time with his family for the first time in 20 years almost. I think he's gonna be the main target for the Mets next year, coming out of 2021. They're gonna hire Theo for the president of baseball operations because I think Sandy is gonna just remain team president. And maybe when Sandy steps down in a few years, maybe they elevate Theo to the team president role, but he'll be the president of baseball operations if he comes in, and if Mets are lucky enough to land him. The GM role is something else that I'm also kind of I really don't know what to expect. I was really hoping that they would hire. I don't know if you've heard of this guy. There's a special assistant in Tampa Bay named Bobby Heck, Heck, Bobby Heck, and he is really well thought of. Around the league, he formerly worked with the Dodgers. He's a guy that a lot of people thought would be the next guy hired after Boston took one of Tampa Bay's guys last year to be their GM in Chaim Bloom. So I think this guy is a really smart baseball mind. I'd love to see him be the GM. There's also a guy, I forget his name, that Sandy had over in Oakland too, who could fill this role. So there's two reasonable guys out there. I heard a lot of people talking about Chris Young. If you remember, the former Met pitcher Chris Young was also in consideration for it, but he pulled his name out earlier this week. What'd you think of that, Dan? Did you like the prospect of Chris Young being GM?
Like too much of an unknown.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy's never really been doing anything, before that kind of on the GM ladder. It's almost as much of a crazy decision as when we hired a guy who was pretty much an agent prior to being a GM.
Yeah, it's true.
I feel we didn't need to go in that direction. Plus, it was too much of an unknown. A player all of a sudden going into the GM type role. They usually go move up in the ranks before they get into that role.
Very true. Very true. I mean, normally you'd see a guy like Chris Young be. I heard somewhere, I believe, that he worked in a small capacity with the Arizona Diamondbacks in their front office for a short period of time. I could be wrong about that. I have to double check, but I do believe that was the case. But yeah, it was nothing close to being the GM. So, and I got to tell you, like I heard Craig Carton on FAN the other day giving the Mets a hard time about that, saying that it's kind of like still the same old Mets type feeling just because Chris Young pulled out of being the GM. And the only thing I could think to myself was, why do I care if Chris Young is the GM of the Mets? I mean, look, would I be willing to give the guy a chance had they hired him? Obviously. I think he's a smart guy. I liked him as a Met. I believe he's an Ivy League educated guy. So he's definitely a guy that would give you a leg up in certain situations. But by no means do I think that the Mets, same old Mets type mentality because Chris Young told you that he didn't want to take the position because he didn't want to leave his family down south where he was living. If Theo Epstein is being considered next year and then he tells the Mets to go screw, maybe then I'll think to myself, same old Mets type thing, depending on how the season plays out this year. But I'm not going to get upset about Chris Young pulling out. How about you?
No, I wasn't so upset about it either.
Yeah. Well, we talked a lot about the new owner and the front office and everything like that, and how they still haven't hired a GM. But let's get into a couple of the players. So Marcus Stroman, after seeing the Mets new owner's press conference, just like a lot of people around baseball, apparently, Trevor Bauer being one of them, I know on his YouTube page, he put out a big video talking about how much he loved the Steve Cohen press conference and how he talks to fans on Twitter and everything. So word's getting around baseball that the Mets are becoming kind of a destination. And one guy who I thought was going to be a former Met, Marcus Stroman, opted in. He took the Mets qualifying offer for $18.9 million. I think that's a good way to bolster this rotation up a little bit. I was very disappointed that Stroman opted out this year. But, not a big deal. He opted back in. He took his qualifying offer. Were you happy about Stroman coming back, upset about it? How'd you feel?
I was mixed opinions when he opted out. Like, I was upset. Like, what the heck were you thinking? This is the worst time you could do this. You just let an entire city down.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next year he opted in. That I kind of like that idea. I'm glad he did. I guess he saw that Steve Cohen just gave him that vibe that this team was going to contend. He knew he didn't really have all of last year to build on getting a bigger contract because he didn't play last year.
Good point.
So, figured this was the best route to take, and plus you might end up on a team that has a chance to contend.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true because one thing that I feel like a lot of people still treat the Mets like they're like the Jets or the Knicks, where they're a really long way away from winning a championship or being in that arena, like being in the top echelon of teams in the league. But the Mets really aren't that far away, in my opinion, at least. When you look at the foundation of this team that the Mets have, it's a relatively young core with Jake being the oldest one, DeGrom at 32 years old, still pitching, amazingly, mind you. But when you look at it, you still have Pete Alonso, who's 25 years old. Jeff McNeil is 27. Michael Conforto is like 26 years old. JD Davis, who's in his mid 20s as well. And you have all those factors playing into it. What do you think, Dan? Dan, you there?
Yeah, man. I'm sorry about that. I had to turn down a phone. During I got a call alert during this thing. Sorry.
No problem, buddy. No problem. That happens. But I think the Mets still have a pretty good foundation. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think we do too. We have a good foundation, and we could be one or two moves, maybe three moves, from being a legit contender.
Yeah, it's true. Now, there's a bunch of pretty good free agents out there, and a bunch more good free agents just hit the market after the non-tender deadline the other night that just passed. But when it comes to free agents, who do you have your eye on? The word yesterday is that the Mets were zeroing in on catcher, former Tiger and White Sox catcher James McCann, who's a right-handed batter. His batting has gotten better the last few years. He's been a better hitter. He's turning himself into a better hitter the older he gets. His hard hit percentage has gone up from, I believe, 34% to 47% over the last few years, whatever that means. But it's something to factor in. And one thing, too, is that he's a very, very good defensive catcher. Now, I would still love to have JT Realmuto, But if you're going to tell me that if we sign this catcher, we could go after maybe both Trevor Bauer and George Springer, I think that sounds pretty good to me. What do you think? Who are you zeroing in on?
I think that's a pretty good way to go because you got a McCann who's might come a little cheaper,
Mm-hmm.
and as long as he doesn't need to rely heavily on his bat, that we got enough support around him in a lineup, like especially if we sign Springer, and of course we signed of course the pitcher Bauer.
Mm-hmm.
It might work out well.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, from what I've heard, they had James McCann. It was reported yesterday that the Mets and him are talking somewhere in the neighborhood of a 4-year, $36 million contract, which $9 million a year for a starting catcher is pretty damn good. When you look at it from the other perspective of Real Muto, who would probably be getting somewhere, 5 years, 125, probably more than that, probably, could be even 6 years, close to 140, more than that maybe. He's going to be looking to set some records this year for the catching position, AAV-wise, average annual salary or value, AAV. But when you think that you can turn around and still get maybe a guy like George Springer and still pick up Cy Young winner Trevor Bauer, I think getting a defensive catcher is pretty good, especially when you look at the numbers. Let's look at Wilson Ramos last year. His defensive runs saved, if you know that metric. He was a -12 last year, good for 18th in the league, which, 18th in the league, it's not the worst, but it's also in the bottom barrel. If you look at James McCann was a +9 defensive runs saved and 5th in the league. So he's in that upper echelon of defensive catchers in the game of baseball. He calls a good game too. If you look at the White Sox last year, the White Sox pitching was very good, and a lot of those catchers gave, a lot of those pitchers gave a lot of that praise to James McCann specifically. So, I would just love to have him in there. Now, if you had to choose between, one of the other two free agents that we mentioned, whether it be Springer or Bauer, which one would you be wanting the Mets to bring in?
I would probably say it would probably have to be a Bauer, in the fact that pitching seems to be a major issue.
Yeah.
And that seems to be a big thing. Like, you could get good pitching, that makes winning, that just gives us more wins.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You can't, you can't really argue with that. When you look at teams like the Dodgers and other teams like that, the pitching is always going to be what wins you the World Series. And when you look at the Yankees, who just went out and spent $300 million on Garrett Cole, yeah, that helped, but they still didn't have enough pitching to beat the pitching-rich Tampa Bay Rays, which is, it might be unorthodox. They might not have the big-time starting pitchers that everybody loves to see, but that bullpen and the way that they did it up until the final game of the World Series, where they yanked Blake Snell, which was just I don't understand how you do that. What do you think of that, actually, just to do a little sidebar?
Well, my cousin is married to my cousin who's born in Florida. She's married to a Rays fan, right?
Yes.
He was like livid about that on Facebook. He was livid about it when I was looking at it.
Yeah, I don't blame him. If, Blake Snell, that could have been one of those nights where he was going out there and throwing a 3-hit shutout and see you later. But, he had a 1-hitter going into the 6th inning, and then he allows the second hit of the game, and they yanked him right away. And you could see, as soon as they took him out, that Dodgers bench got excited. And because they knew it doesn't matter who they're putting in right now, it's not Blake Snell. And they weren't really getting close to him that night. But, just to continue on here, The Mets did make a big signing, actually, as they signed former Twins relief pitcher Trevor May to a deal. Do you know much about Trevor May? How'd you feel about that deal?
Well, I heard from someone on social media I know from the Minnesota area how we saying, oh, you guys picked up a good one.
I agree.
Be a reliable seventh or eighth inning guy.
Yeah. I mean, I agree, man. This is a guy who, by the way, he's worked with Jeremy Hefner, the Mets pitching coach, before. He was Hefner was the pitching assistant for the Twins when Trevor May was coming back off Tommy John surgery 2 or 3 years ago. And Trevor May, following that Tommy John surgery, became a relief pitcher and really turned his career around. He scrapped his curveball, has a devastating slider now, and throws 96 up in the zone. And he gets a lot of swings and misses. He was right up there with, believe it or not, that we're going to have numbers that complement Edwin Diaz. Edwin Diaz was one of the best strikeout pitchers in baseball this year, striking out and having a whiff rate of about 47%, which is insane. And Trevor May was also in that 40% range. This is a guy that throws 96 miles an hour. Like I said, has a great curve, has a great slider. He scrapped the curveball, actually. He said one of the last curves that he threw was a curveball to Dominic Smith in Minnesota in 2019. Did you hear about that, Dan?
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah. So, and I remember that home run too. That was a day game right after the All-Star break. And the Mets, at that point in 2019, when Mickey Callaway was he was still the manager back then, there was a lot of people, the Mets were kind of buried in a lot of people's minds. Nobody thought at this point that they were going to end the season on this roll and win 86 games and just miss the playoffs by a couple of games. But really, that Twins series is when things really started getting rolling for them. And and Dominic Smith hit a big 3-run shot that really changed things up. The Mets were down 4-2, put them up 5-4, and that really, really helped things. And I think really got Dominic Smith going too, because he had a slow start that year. But so Trevor May said when it comes to his free agency, which lasted a little bit less than a month, half the league checked in on him. So he said the Mets really separated themselves from the pack because he really loved, just like Marcus Stroman said, what the Mets' new owner, Steve Cohen, was talking about and how excited the Mets fan base was to, engage with and embark on this new relationship with Steve Cohen. So, how does it make you feel as a Met fan knowing that a pretty, sought-after pitcher that people really wanted to bring in chose the Mets? I mean, apparently they even beat out the Red Sox, who, Boston didn't have a good year, last year, but they're still the Red Sox, and you could still, it wouldn't surprise me at all next year to see them be in World Series contention again, depending what, if they make a couple of moves here and there. So how does it make you feel knowing that a pretty decent free agent, chose the Mets after over half the league?
That already just gave me a vibe that this team could contend. If you're like, all of a sudden you're getting people that want to come here.
Yeah, it's true.
And I guess like us, the players themselves have social media accounts. They're seeing Steve Cohen, and they're seeing all of our responses to Steve Cohen. So I'm even thinking of asking Stephen Cohen myself if he could waive off the $4 surcharge, because I didn't buy that many Met tickets yet. There was a couple of games I had planned to go to, but I didn't buy tickets to all the games I was going to go to yet.
Mm.
I had at least 3 tickets that were like on coupons. I think 2 were on. I think 1 was on StubHub. 1 was on due to Mets box office. It was a total of $25 of tickets.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a ticket that I saw with my that was in my price range for that credit.
Yeah.
Still didn't cover the surcharges.
Oh, that's ridiculous. And you're right. There are a lot of surcharges, especially with everything. I just really hope that one thing under this Steve Cohen regime is that they stop nickel and diming the fans so much. But it is a business. So as much as I really hope they stop doing it, you know what? if they can do it and start winning and get us a couple of World Series rings, you know what? I'll pay the extra money, right?
Yep, exactly. I'm probably am gonna eventually pay that $4 that my $25 credit isn't charging. I'll do it, and I'll be at a game very early in the season, if not the first home game very early in the season. I'll be at Citi Field with my cutout. I don't know if you heard about the plan I have with my cutout ever since I picked it up. I thought it'd be a hilarious idea to bring my cutout with me to the first game I attend.
Oh, yeah.
Funny.
Let's see your cutout. You still have your cutout by you? I know I saw it before, but just while we get it on the air. There you go. That's the cutout Dan's talking about. That's sat in Citi Field for all 30 games this season.
Yeah, and you could see like how it's kind of like from the, that it's been in the elements a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I guess they must have put some holes to top. It seems like they tied them to the seats by what I'm seeing here.
Yeah, so they don't fly away. That's true. That makes sense.
This number code to identify with the name, or for whatever reason they use this number code for. I gotta see if I know someone who might be able to explain me what the number codes were used for.
Maybe it's just 1945. Maybe you're just the 1,945th they put out there. But who knows?
Yeah, it could be just something they were using to keep track of the amount of cutouts they bought.
Yeah, either that or just a really big fan of World War II. Kind of like Anthony Cumia. But so one last thing on the Mets too, because we're actually flying through here right now, Dan. I can't believe that we've been on for so long already. But I still want to touch on a little football and hockey before we wrap up here. But Steven Matz was given a contract yesterday for just over $5 million. He really only has about $870,000 committed. The Mets could cut him on or before St. Patty's Day, March 17th, and they'd only owe him a little over $800,000. He got in a lot of Met fans' doghouses last year. I got to say, I've been a constant defender of Steven Matz over the years. I love having that lefty in the rotation, but last year he had a really, really bad season. So a lot of Met fans are not happy about him coming back. How do you feel about Steven Matz being brought back?
I feel they just brought him back on what essentially is a very short leash deal.
Mm-hmm.
That they could just see if they didn't like what they saw during spring training, they could release them.
Very true. It's low risk, high reward. If you don't like what you see, just like you said, if you don't like what you see in spring training, he's gone by St. Patty's Day. And if you do like him and he is pitching well, hey, you've got a cheap number 5 starter lefty pitcher for $5 million, which in baseball term, especially when you have an owner that has $14 billion, $5 million is kind of like $20 to me and you. So. So I think it was a good move. You want to. The thing is you want to give yourself as many options as possible. If you remember heading into spring training last year, the Mets had 6 starting pitchers for 5 spots, where everybody was saying, "Oh boy, what are we going to do? We got this guy, we got Michael Wacha, we got Porcello, we got Syndergaard, DeGrom, we got Stroman." They had all these guys. And then look, when we finally got to the regular season after the COVID hiatus, the Mets were starting guys all over the place because these guys were going down to injuries left and right. Stroman opted out. Syndergaard had to get Tommy John surgery. Wacha missed large periods of time. Porcello was never really that effective. So, I mean, outside of DeGrom and David Peterson, who I really like, the Mets really didn't have any consistent starting pitching last year, which is a big reason why they didn't make the playoffs. So, all right, with that, let's move on from the Mets. Let's do a little football talk. As you got your New York Giants, your first place, by the way, New York Giants are currently 4-7, tied with the Washington football team, both 4-7 atop the awful NFC East, which, the NFC East has had their years where they're one of the better divisions in football. This year is not one of them, and much to the Giants' benefit. Their coach, Joe Judge has them on a roll right now. They've won 3 straight games. And as a Giants fan, I know you've got a real tough game coming up this week against the Seattle Seahawks, which probably not many people expect you to win. Win or lose this week, what's your confidence level in this team right now?
Well, so far, I knew this team going into the season, this team was going to be a relatively young team. And they also didn't have a normal preseason like they normally do. They have at least 3 preseason games, and they have a whole complement of a full off season to get ready, get the team together. They just went right into the season, it felt like. And luckily, the rest of the division wasn't doing that well. It gave enough time to get the team to kind of gel together. And now they're starting to kind of gain momentum. Even when they lost to Tampa Bay, which people keep saying is a team that's the team to beat, they kept that game close the entire game.
Yeah, it's true. That was the Monday Night Football game where the Giants, I mean, for most of that game, I thought the Giants were going to win it. I mean, if you weren't going up against a Hall of Fame quarterback in Brady, you probably do win that game. And, that's why even before this 3-game winning streak, you saw a lot of signs that the Giants were coming out of it, and that Joe Judge had this team well coached, well prepared, and where you weren't really seeing the results 100% yet, the results were going to come, and they're coming to fruition right now. And this you just had a winnable game against a Cincinnati Bengals team that you should have beat and did beat. And now, like you said, we got this really tough game this Sunday against the Seattle Seahawks. But outside of that, I think the Giants have so let's just say the Giants do lose this game to Seattle. When you look at the Giants' remaining schedule, they still have a pretty good shot of at least making this a 6-10 or maybe even a 7-9 team. What do you think about that?
That looks very much what it could end up being. The other big factor is that we all of a sudden see Daniel Jones is out for this Sunday's game. Oh,
Daniel Jones was declared out.
Yeah, so that whole thing now adds another monkey wrench thrown into the fire.
Very true. Very true. And, he had been playing well. He gets bit with the turnover bug every once in a while, but he'd been playing really, really well. And, so it's a shame to see him out. And now it's going to be really interesting to see how the Giants show up this Sunday without he or Saquon Barkley, who it's funny that the Giants have finally gotten on this run for the first time in a couple of years without Saquon. I'm sure it hurts him a little bit to be watching this from the sideline. And, odds are this is just a little bit of a mirage, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to Giants fans right now. Right now, we're going into Week 13, and the Giants are in first place, and that's all that matters. And they won 3 games in a row. They're feeling good about themselves. Their fans are feeling good about themselves, and Joe Judge has this team in a good spot right now, an enviable spot, because if you win your division, you get a home playoff game, and who knows what could happen from there.
Yeah, I could end up all of a sudden end up calling up my relatives in Tampa. Hey, I need a place to stay for a game.
Yeah, it's true. And don't forget too that there have been 2 teams that made the playoffs at under 500 teams that won the divisions. It was I believe the 2010 Seahawks at 7-9 and the 2014 Carolina Panthers at 7-9. Coincidentally, both NFC teams, and the Giants could be that 3rd team, and the 2 previous teams that did it won those playoff games. So, it's and I remember specifically the really big upset was Seattle beating the defending Super Bowl champion New Orleans Saints in that game. So, it's something to just keep in mind that, hey, there's a very good chance you find yourself playing a home playoff game in about 5 weeks, maybe, whenever I think the last game of the regular season is January 3rd. So maybe about 5 weeks, you could see your team hosting a playoff game. And that's a really, really, that's got to make you feel really good, right?
Yep, that does. That kind of makes me feel excited. The prospect, I'm literally potentially seeing me and Dave Eastside Dave going back and forth over a playoff game.
Exactly. I could see it right now. The Eastside Dave show, you guys all getting excited about, pumped up for Giants playoff football. It'd be the first time since 2016 that you guys have made the playoffs. Not quite as long of a streak as my team has been out of the playoffs for, as my 0-11 Jets, who are, let's be honest, probably going to go 0-16, have made the playoffs since 2010. So, by no means am I taking a shot at the Giants. You guys had a couple of down years, but the Giants, much like the Yankees, the Giants always seem to figure it out a lot sooner than the Mets or the Jets. So,
I'll show you another little piece of memorabilia I got from someone who went to the Super Bowl. Hold on.
Let's see it. Oh, nice. Which one is that? Is that the first one or the second one against the Patriots?
This was the second one a friend of mine was at.
Nice.
He brought me a bunch of Super Bowl souvenirs. When he came back from Indianapolis, he came back in time for the parade.
Yeah.
And he got me this, not in exchange for helping him get the Daily News, because he knew by the time he got back to New York, even though it was the day after they won the Super Bowl, he knew they would be they would sold out of the Daily News.
Mm-hmm.
I did New York Daily News.
Yes, absolutely.
He added this to the gift box.
Oh, that's awesome, man. That is great. One of my favorite memories, obviously I'm not a Giants fan, so I wish I enjoyed seeing you guys beat the Patriots that first time, so they didn't have the perfect season. But obviously I wish I could see my team win one. But my favorite memory of the Giants winning both their Super Bowls, actually, that over the last 15 years, was Eastside Dave. Do you remember the panoramic picture of him being at the first Super Bowl, the 2008 one, where they beat the Patriots, the perfect Patriots? And if you saw his picture, he was so drunk that he was asleep in the audience. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. that you would want to get that drunk. That I would literally, if I was at a championship game at the stadium, I would maybe only stick to 2 drinks.
I wouldn't be able to. I would be way too nervous to get that drunk. I especially, I mean, it's different for Dave though, because Dave has seen his team win a bunch of championships. He's been alive for, that whole Yankee dynasty, and he's now seen multiple Giant Super Bowls and everything. So he's coming at it from a different perspective. But me, I mean, the only teams, I was, like I said, I was like 12 days old when the Mets won the World Series when I was born. And in 94, I was 7 when the Rangers won the Stanley Cup. So those are the only teams I've ever seen that I root for win a championship. So, and just to, I just to break some news here, when I was 12 days old and 7, I definitely wasn't drinking. So, so I really haven't experienced it like that yet.
But yeah, it'll be an interesting experience. I tell people ask me, what do I think it's going to be like when the Mets win the World Series? I said, I really do not know what it'll be like when that happens. I said, I might react crazier than I ever have. I know I'm probably going to call into Anthony Cumia doing something of a Mike Schmidt impression, saying, on this day, I showed up to Flushing, New York with 2 good knees and a dream of seeing the Mets win the World Series. And that came true. I'm literally of that famous Mike Schmidt clip.
Oh my God, I used to love when Opie Anthony played that, man. That was so funny. I thank God that dream came true.
Time I saw the Mets in Philly by Citizens Bank Ballpark,
Yeah.
the statue of Mike Smith. I don't know if you ever saw the tweet, but I tweeted a picture of it, typed in the comments that whole reference to that clip.
That's hilarious, man. Oh man. But like I said, we're just about finishing up here right now. I want to do the last couple of minutes talking a little hockey as we move along here. Me and Dan are both Ranger fans, as I just mentioned with the Stanley Cup and everything. Um, you know, we just heard from Pierre LeBrun earlier this morning, who's an NHL reporter from Canada, who said that the word from the NHL governors meetings right now that are going on, where they're trying to set the return to play format and how many games they're going to play and everything along those lines, the health protocols, that right now we're looking at somewhere between a 52 and a 56 game season. It looks like the start date of January 1st is probably out the window. It's probably going to end up being closer to January 15th, maybe even January 20th, depending on when they actually start training camps on. So it's going to, this is going to be a real touch and go situation for the NHL. Is they're just going to, it's going to be like we mentioned earlier, like a strike shortened season. Really, when it comes down to it, which, it's not the best situation, but it's the best they can do right now. We're probably obviously going to be starting with no fans in the buildings. They're probably going to be starting with the Canadian division of these 7 Canadian teams right now, with everybody worried about the borders and everything like that. So we'll probably even see another crazy NHL playoff format. What are your thoughts on hockey coming back right now? Are you excited for it? And do you think that that they're going to be able to get it done in time, or do you think they're possibly looking at another lockout?
I think they can look at I think they can get it done. They just got to figure out the situation with the Canadian teams, and if they got to start it without fans, I'm fine with that. They could leave room to maybe slowly bring in fans if they can't. But if they can't do that. And if they need to have the Canadian teams play in some minor league hockey arenas, they could probably do that, being the factor in that there might not be fans, so they might not have to worry about that issue.
That's true. That's true. And what I really hope, though, is I hope that even if there aren't any fans allowed, I really hope they're able to play in their home buildings. Because it really, one of the things that did depress me about the Rangers being in the playoffs last year is that when you got to thinking about everything that could possibly happen if everything broke right, just like it did for the Islanders, where you went on a run into Game 6 of the conference finals, or like Tampa Bay going all the way to winning the cup. What really I didn't really feel comfortable with is, especially New York Rangers playoff hockey should be played in Madison Square Garden. You know what I mean? Well, at least the home games. And it, especially like raising the cup and everything like that, it just didn't feel right. You know what I mean? The Rangers playing playoff games. I mean, the last time the Rangers played a home playoff game not in Madison Square Garden was 1950. Because actually back then the circus was in town at Madison Square Garden, so the Rangers and Detroit Red Wings played the whole series up in Toronto. So there's a little history lesson for you there. And so like how did you feel last year? Because I just thought it was so weird, and
I felt weird too, especially the way, because they had so many teams in only 2 locations. They had to sort out a situation where the teams had to play weekday day games. And I felt, it's just me, my weird hours at work, kind of like 4 o'clock to like maybe somewhere mid-morning, but 4 a.m. to mid-morning, somewhere around there. I usually get inside. I was able to catch the game, but I knew there was people that couldn't catch the game that were probably having to use a radio feed in their office. If they were, I don't know, maybe I think some office workers were still working from home, but It's
It's
still
true.
kind of felt weird that it made the game some of the games inaccessible for some people.
Absolutely, you're 100% right. Even me, I was able to catch most of them, but for a little bit, I was stuck at work, and I was either watching it on my phone or just like you said, listening to it on the radio on my phone, or just trying to keep tabs the best I could. I was really excited for it, and it was really unfortunate the way it played out for our Rangers as they got knocked out 1-2-3 against the Carolina Hurricanes. The unceremonious ending of the King's reign on Broadway as Henrik Lundqvist started the first two games. He played well. You can't take anything away from Henrik, but when they were down 0-2, they started Igor Shesterkin, who looked good too, but they also lost that game. But one thing I will say is that it worked out pretty damn well for us, buddy, because we ended up coming away with the number one overall draft pick in the NHL draft lottery, as the Rangers, for the first time since 1966, had the number one overall pick. And let's be honest, in 1966, the draft isn't what it was today. The talent level isn't what it was today. And the Rangers were, and the scouting too, even back then. So the Rangers really got themselves a winner, a potential franchise cornerstone in Alexis Lafreniere. How are you feeling when you saw that ball come up and when the guy turned it around, there was that beautiful New York Rangers symbol on it?
I was like shocked when I saw. Am I looking at the shield of the New York Rangers on that ball? I was not expecting it. I was like, I went nuts. I would have thrown confetti if there was confetti. Let's just say hypothetical. It was hypothetical confetti in my living room when I watched the draft lottery.
It's true, man. I mean, I felt the same way. I was really freaking out. I like when they first pulled it up, I 100% thought that it was the Toronto Maple Leafs. I really thought it was the Toronto Maple Leaf symbol. And then when I finally got a closer look at it and I realized it was the Rangers, man, you could have knocked me over with a feather. I never thought in a million years the Rangers were going to win that draft lottery. And thank God they did, because bringing this kid in really solidifies the Rangers on the wing. It makes them a much deeper team, especially from an offensive perspective. And, when you get the number 2 pick in 2019 of Capo Caco, and you get the number 1 pick in 2020 of Alexis Lafreniere, things are breaking your way, and you're doing it the right way. And, I'm so excited for the future that this team has in front of them right now, especially with all the other guys in the minors they have coming up right now. I mean, we have Keandre Miller. They got, Libor Hayek. They got some of these kids over in Europe right now, like Kravtsov over in Russia, and it's just going to be a parade of these young guys coming in over the next few years, and it's just all about if you use them right, you develop them right, and it's a shame that Henrik's not going to be there for that. I'd love to see him get a cup with us. I can't say I'll be rooting for him in the Capitals this year. I kind of wish that he went to a Western Conference team or retired or went over to Europe or something like that, which I was really hoping he was going to go play with his brother in Sweden. But, the guy still has that drive. He wants to win a Stanley Cup, and that's what we loved about Henrik for all the years he was here. So how you feeling about the team right now?
I feel this team's a great young team. Especially the fact we developed Lundqvist's successor, Shesterkin. He looks like he's got that same big game mentality.
Absolutely. I mean, the guy, you could tell, and I even heard, I don't remember anybody being quoted specifically, but I even remember hearing guys saying at the conclusion right before of the season, right before the COVID stoppage, that they just loved playing in front of this guy. That there was an energy that you just had the confidence that he was going to make the stops, even if you made a mistake. That he really instilled a lot of confidence in his team over his 12 games that he started in the regular season, and that's a big reason why he went 10-2 and put the Rangers right back in that playoff mix. And I I mean, the way that I really feel is that no team was hurt more by the stoppage than the New York Rangers. I mean, I've never. You remember how good Mika Zibanejad and Artemi Panarin looked before the stoppage? I mean, Mika, he had that 5-goal game. I haven't seen a guy on the Rangers play like he was playing since Yager. And before that, maybe even Gretzky or Messier. I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I just feel the team was gaining a lot of momentum, and the moment I heard COVID hit, I felt this just killed a lot of momentum. It's gonna be a tough one. That they're
Yeah,
all gonna go when they go all of a sudden. It was pretty much they were going right into the playoffs.
it's true. It's true. And it was like once this happened, the wind just came out of their sails. Now, let's not dance around the topic that Chris Kreider did suffer a broken foot right before this, which kind of took the wind out of their sails a little bit before that. And I kind of thought that maybe with him getting healthy and everything like that, that the Rangers would be, ready to go come the playoff time in August. Once they did the restart, but unfortunately, the team wasn't able just to recapture what they had in February and March. So, but you know what? It all worked out for the best because the Rangers won the lottery, got Alexis Lafreniere, and now they have a great future ahead of them right now. I'm really excited for it. And I think they're in the right hands with JD leading the charge, John Davidson, the former goalie, who's now team president. And I also like the coach, David Quinn. I think he does a really good job too.
Yep, I feel David Quinn was eventually going to be. I knew he'd eventually be a good coach. It just took him a while to get adjusted to the NHL. He had the experience. From what I gather, I've been to Boston before, so I have gotten the grasp that hockey over there with Boston College. Like college hockey's a big deal in Boston. So he was coaching there with the expectations like that.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Level that he's going into, though on a larger scale, he was going into here in the Garden.
You're right. And this wasn't even his first go around in the NHL. He was also he had coached as an assistant in the AHL with the Colorado Avalanche, so he does have a little bit of pro hockey experience. But just like you said, I mean, there's no place to come straight from the NCAA to to the NHL, especially Madison Square Garden in New York, like David Quinn did. He had the perfect resume starting off in that Boston college where that's a real place where you have to perform. And if you don't perform, you're going to be on the hot seat real quick. And I think David Quinn, he's getting to the point now where he's still 2021 this year is going to be more about a development year. I think they still want to make the playoffs. They're probably shooting for like a 7 or 8 seed. I mean, obviously they'd like higher, but I think realistically they're looking at probably like a 7 or 8 seed. But this is going to be the last real learning year and the last year where there's a potential that they could be a seller at the deadline and maybe, get rid of a guy like Brendan Smith, who Brendan Smith has been up and down in his career as a Ranger, but I'm going to be really glad when he's gone and that $4.5 million is off the books. Nothing against Brendan Smith. He's a good guy. He's a good clubhouse guy. And I also like what he did. He was one of the guys that really reached out to Capo Caco last year and really, let the kid lean on him and ride with him for a while. So I think Brendan Smith really has been worth a lot of that money. But once his cap hits off and the Rangers have all this dead cap off the books next year, they're going to have a lot of money to play with. And then the 21-22 season is going to be a real big test. And David Quinn, it's not going to be about development anymore. It's going to be about winning. And we're going to want a cup in the next couple of years, especially with all the talent they have on this team and all the talent coming up. And, when they finally get all this money off the books too, they're going to have a really big chance to add a top line, hopefully center. And that's going to really make the difference for them. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I feel like 2020, the 2021-2022 season, that's going to be a big season to be a part of. fans are going to return to the Garden in a big way if all goes well.
Absolutely. We just got to hope that, especially with the COVID and everything, got to hope these numbers go down. Got to hope that hopefully this season coming up right now, the one that they're going to be in training camp, hopefully very soon for, hopefully we get fans in there at some point, probably not the beginning, but maybe second half of the season, maybe something like that. They'll get people in. I mean, they're talking about, like I said, a 56 game or so regular season where the playoffs start, sometime mid-May, and there's a Stanley Cup awarded in probably early to mid-July. So then that would give them the ability for the next season to get back on track, and hopefully we'll have, a lot of things to look forward to with the New York Rangers, and where we could actually go to a Ranger game too, to be honest.
Yep, exactly. I'm ready to go purchase a Rangers mask and have it ready to go.
You got that right, buddy. Well, it looks like we're about out of time right now. We actually went over a little bit. Dan, I can't thank you enough for joining me right now. If you enjoyed everything you heard today, guys, you could check out Dan on the Eastside Dave Show on Compound Media.
Eastside Dave Show, Compound Media, Tuesdays, 7:30, compoundmedia.com. Buy your subscription today.
Absolutely. It's worth every single penny. They have such a great, range of programs over there. Not only the main boss over there, Anthony Cumia, who obviously is just, one of the best broadcasters ever. I love that guy. Him and Dave Landau have a great show over there. In Hot Water is one of my favorites. I love that show. Morning is a great show. And obviously Talib Starks doing a great show over there. Pat Dixon doing Crime Report. So they have Chrissy Mayer's Wet Spot. A lot of really great content at Compound Media. And Daniel, Mr. Kurlan right here, is just one of the great stars over there that provides over there. And not to mention, he performs every once in a while on the great Chip Chipperson podcast. So I love seeing you. I absolutely love seeing you on there too, Dan.
Yep, I love being on that show myself. I had a lot of fun, as unusual as that. Did you watch that Zoom show I was in when I was on a show that was done via Zoom?
What with Chip?
Yeah.
No, actually, what was that, last Friday?
No, that was a bunch of months back. I think it was during the summer.
Oh, really? I don't remember that for some reason.
Yeah, it was during the summer, and I even I think I had Mr. Malunigan sitting next to me for most of the show. That's awesome, and I do love when he does the Zooms. But the last couple I really haven't been able to get into. I'm around the girlfriend and everything like that, and just been really busy lately. So especially late, so haven't been able to catch up on Chip's Zooms. But I definitely see the podcast every week, and I love it. And but Dan, before we get out of here. Now, I just want to give a quick plug to your YouTube page, too. What's your YouTube page? How can people check out all those? Daniel Kurlan on YouTube.
Daniel Kurlan. Okay, you can check out his video. He's got a lot of great Where's My Beer videos.
Yeah, that was an original video I made for the Eastside Dave Show. And for a while, that's how they ended the show, with that video.
Yes.
I liked it so much, I said, some of these videos I filmed mainly, some of the Eastside Dave Show little clips I filmed. We're mainly for the Eastside Dave Show, but some of them worked so well, I said, let's put it on YouTube.
Hey, that's exactly what I'm going to do with this video. So, hey, Dan, thanks for being on the show today. I really appreciate you taking your time to hang out with me. Love that. And, hope we got to do this again soon. And hopefully in 2021, we'll be catching a few Met games, a few Ranger games, and everything else like that.
Yep, that's right.
Okay, buddy. Have a good one, and thanks for joining me.
All right, you have a great day.
Okay, everybody. Have a good one, and check me out. Oh, actually, no, but before we go real quick, Dan, give your Twitter a plug.
My Twitter plug is BOBO103NYC.
BOBO103NYC, and I am he is at BOBO103NYC. I am at Cramer NY, and we are out of here. Have a good one.